Previously, I released a video on the current state of Godzilla games and how we so desperately need a new one. And by that I mean I literally just recorded the first video and I'm recording the second video back to back. So today I'm going to pitch you all how I would handle my dream Godzilla game. I'll try not to get too wish listy with it because obviously, if I had everything my way, it would just be, I want all monsters from all eras, I want it to be open world, but blend to the old Pipeworks game, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. It would be like the perfect game that would never come to pass. So I'm not going to get super hardcore wish listy with it, but I am going to get a little bit wish listy with it. I'll try and keep it as grounded and realistic as I possibly can. And if you haven't checked out part 1 of this video where I talk about, where is the new Godzilla game, go check that out right now before we get into this the rest of this topic. I'll put up a card so you can go check it out. But anyways, let's get into that. So for a modern Godzilla game, I feel like in the gameplay department, the following is absolutely necessary. First off, there needs to be a single player mode. Too often nowadays, games are built around, multiplayer being the priority, or it just completely being only multiplayer, always online. And I can't tell you how many of these always online games have bit the dust in the past few years. Oh, Friday the 13th, the video game, how I miss you so much. Like, what if the servers are shut down, but I still want to play the game against, computers or whatever? What if I just don't want to play multiplayer at all? There better be some offline single-player options included. And speaking of single-player options, I feel like a modern Godzilla game would be the perfect avenue to finally include, a really good single-player campaign. I prefer single-player games over multiplayer games. Just something about a really good video game campaign with at least a decent story and some satisfying gameplay. It hits for me in a way that multiplayer never does. And, we've been talking so much about telling a story from the Kaiju's perspective, with Kong and GXK, and how the upcoming MonsterVerse movie is probably going to be more from Godzilla's perspective. I feel like of any medium, a video game would be the perfect one to tell almost completely the entire story from the Kaiju perspective. Maybe the whole game, it's mostly fighting missions, but in between there's some of the mix, where, you have to travel somewhere, whether it's absorbing radiation or whatever. Just something to, develop Godzilla as a character. And, delving into his personal life, his origins, and his past. I feel like a great video game single-player campaign would be the perfect place to do that. And me personally, I feel like that would be the perfect avenue to tell a completely new Godzilla story, just disconnected from any continuity, and with their own original designs to go with it. But obviously have the pre-existing incarnations as, unlockable versions of Godzilla or, the other Kaiju available for the multiplayer modes and the online, offline co-op, all that stuff. And I feel like absolutely the most important thing when it comes to, giant monster fighting game, it needs to have fun, good combat. That's where I really feel like, the PS4 games failed and the Pipeworks games really succeeded in. But absolutely, just please, God, do not make the Kaiju be controlled by tank controls like the PS4 game. Just don't do it. I should be able to turn with just the joystick, not the bumpers. And then another thing that I feel like this game needs to prioritize, considering this is a real big problem in modern gaming nowadays, which is just insane, is, substantial content in a large amount of it, and large levels as well. Now, there's a couple different ways that, the level size could be approached. You could either do an entirely open world video game, which, I'd be fine with as long as it's executed well. Or B, what I would personally prefer as someone who, enjoys the old Halos and stuff like that. Really large open levels where, the levels feel open world, but they're not open world. They're all separate levels. Just different areas for Godzilla to go to destroy just, big, huge maps. Future me here, I didn't realize until I was editing this video that there was a bunch of stuff in the gameplay section that I left out that I wanted to talk about. One of those being, a third option for how to approach the levels / open world / whatever you want to do for the video game. But I didn't realize that I had not talked about these things because I'd not put them in the script, and I had subconsciously wanted to talk about them, but I just forgot. It went over my head. Due to the fact that I'm in a time crunch and this video has already been delayed, I'm just going to record it straight as a voiceover into here, and I'm just going to put some Godzilla Unleashed gameplay. So sorry about, the inconsistency in the video. There's a third option I have for the open world that I think would actually probably work the best. One of my favorite games of all time, actually, I lie, my actual favorite game of all time is Shadow of the Colossus. That is my favorite video game of all time. This is one of the first games I ever played. I think actually probably the first game I ever played. I was very young when I first played it. I at least try to beat it once a year. There's sometimes I miss it, but I play this game a lot. This is one of my favorite games ever. I constantly revisit it. But the way this game sets up your journey, in my opinion, is just, God, I love the way they did the open world and everything with this game, and like, there's very few games that have even come close to beating the structure of this game for me. Basically, you have like a central hub point that you start the game in, and you go to all these different areas. You're directed by the light beam that comes from your sword. That's how you find the colossi that you need to defeat. And after each successive colossi slain, you get sent back to the hub area, and then you just, you go out, you rinse and repeat over and over again until the game ends. Now, obviously, Shadow of the Colossus isn't the only game ever to use this setup. Some examples that come to mind are Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. You started out on the Mantis ship, and you went out to each planet, and, you unlocked them linearly, but you could progress and go back whenever you wanted to do the stuff you haven't done yet. Same thing with God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok. Very similar setup. And Doom Eternal, to an extent, had this setup. It wasn't really open world. The levels of that game were more like the early Halo games, where it's a really large, massive linear level that you can just, kind of screw around in for a bit. But I feel like setting up a modern Godzilla game like this is, honest to God, probably the best way to do it. Where, you have your main linear story, but it's also, an open world that just opens up as you progress through the story and unlock different areas. And you can backtrack and, maybe you can do side quests like in Elden Ring, get over leveled, and then go back to where you're supposed to go, absolutely crush the boss you're supposed to fight. Maybe something like that. And another thing that has to do with the hub area that I didn't even think about until now that I'm adding back into the video, maybe you can do some Godzilla customization with this hub area. Maybe have a setup akin to Man-Eater where you can unlock different traits, different abilities for Godzilla. I'm not saying do a skill tree. I don't know about a skill tree, but just unlocking different abilities and traits that you can put on your Godzilla that, maybe allow like faster regen, or maybe allows him to be faster overall, allows your Godzilla to like go into a full sprint like GXK Godzilla. Or maybe you can unlock different variations of a nuclear pulse, or even different variations of your atomic breath. Maybe you can trade out, the regular traditional sustained long beam for something like -1's beam, where it's a progressive charge up that shoots out in one big massive shot, but it does damage to you. Maybe you can unlock something like Shin Godzilla's beams, where they just shoot out of everywhere on your body. I feel that getting a custom build for your Godzilla would honestly be something really cool that this game could include. And maybe that's how you unlock the other playable Godzillas for multiplayer and use them in single player. Maybe when you unlock, say, -1's beam, you unlock -1, and you can use his beam for whatever Godzilla that you want. Whether it's a new original design made for the game, maybe there's, a complete Godzilla customizer where you can change the spines and everything. And then obviously, apply your actual Godzilla skin, like if you want GMK Godzilla, just apply that. I don't know, just something like that sounds really cool to me. It's kind of like how the suits in Spider-Man work, where you can use the traits on each different Spider-Man suit, but you unlock it with each suit that you get. But like I said, maybe there's a Godzilla customization option where you can, customize the different bits and pieces on your Godzilla that maybe, I don't know, you have something that looks like GMK, but is like the evolved colors, has like the Thagomizer, all that stuff. I don't know, I'm just tossing ideas out here, because like I said, I'm adding this in post, and I'm just now thinking of all this. And one last gameplay feature I think that a Godzilla game should include, or a modern Godzilla game should include, I didn't even think of it until this guy commented on my last video, so shout out to A Distant Whale 8419 for commenting this. But a new Godzilla game should innovate on the destruction and the destruction technology. All the old Godzilla games, you swipe at the building a few times before it just magically, like, it explodes on you, but you don't see each bit and piece get taken out. And we have so many games with destructible environments nowadays, stuff such as Teardown. I've never played Teardown, but these games exist. But like a modern Godzilla game, 1000% I feel that innovating the destruction tech to where, say, if you're fighting a kaiju and they tail swipe you, you fall back into a building. That building should, like, real time with you as you're falling over, just crumble into a bajillion pieces. Would it be absolutely tanky on your device, whether it's PlayStation, Xbox, computer? Oh, absolutely. But it would be so worth it just for the cool factor alone. But real-time destruction physics that react to you as you're playing the game, I feel like for a new Godzilla game or kaiju game in general, I feel like that is kind of a no-brainer thing to innovate there. And yeah, that's pretty much all I needed to address here. So yeah, we'll hand it back to past me. Like I said, personally, I would prefer option B, but option A could totally work. Just make the open world dense and full of things to do. Don't make it barren and devoid. You know, pack it to the brim with maybe some NPCs, whether it's kaiju or like, you know, the military or like some mechs you gotta fight, stuff like that. Throw in some side missions like, you know, go to the nuclear power plant to restore like your radiation levels. Maybe that helps you unlock a new strength form or something like that. And maybe like, you know, as you're traveling throughout the world, like I haven't beat Maneater, but you know, this is one of the things I really like about Maneater. There are times where you'll interact with the humans, and it's basically like how the police in GTA work, where they sick a bunch of humans on you to try and kill you. Do that with the military. Maybe at like, you know, a 5-star Godzilla wanted level, maybe, you know, throw in like Mogera or somebody to fight. But like, you know, the first bit be like, you know, maybe it starts out just like regular military infantry, then you get to like masers, and then, you know, like I said, full-on mechs. Now that we got, you know, the core essentials of the gameplay out of the way, let's get to, you know, my roster here for this Godzilla game. Now, obviously, if I had everything my way, I would have like literally every Godzilla kaiju ever, all the way from the original Showa Godzilla to the TriStar Godzilla to Evo Goji. I would have them all. I would even throw the canceled monsters in there. I would throw like the Griffin. I would throw in the Queen Bitch from the canceled Godzilla TriStar sequel. But you know, that isn't realistic. And we can also potentially, like if this game was to ever come out, we could potentially achieve that with mods. So let's pretend we have a limited budget and keep it realistic. Let's not include every kaiju ever conceived. Assuming we can work with both Toho and Legendary's interpretations here, I feel, you know, obviously Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Mechagodzilla, I feel are all safe bets to be included in the game. I said earlier that I'd like this game to have, you know, its own take, interpretations, designs of these kaiju, and I still want that, obviously. But also, you know, include their other versions, and I feel for those kaiju that I listed off, those are probably the safest bet to have, like, not every version ever made of them thrown in the game, but a good amount of them. Like, I wouldn't say you would see like any of the Rebirth of Mothra versions of Mothra or Ghidorah in there, but like, you know, I feel like, you know, a Showa Ghidorah, a Heisei Ghidorah, a Monsterverse Ghidorah, Kaiser Ghidorah, I feel like those are safe bets. All the Monsterverse versions of Mothra, Showa, Heisei, Millennium, Mothra, Showa, Mechagodzilla, Mechagodzilla 2 from the Heisei era, Kiryu from the Millennium era, Monsterverse Mechagodzilla, I feel like all those are safe bets. Anime versions, I don't know. We'll just say no for now. We'll just say no for now. As for Godzilla himself, obviously he's gonna have the most like different alternate versions of any character in this entire game. I mean, he's the main character. The guaranteed ones, in my opinion, are like one of the Showa Godzillas, whether it's the actual original Showa suit or like one of the later Showa films. Probably 2 Heisei suits, whether it's just one of the random Heisei suits from any of the other movies, and then Burning Godzilla. As for Millennium, I feel like 2000 or the Tokyo SOS designs are going to be probably the safest bet there. Those are what most people think when they think of Millennium Godzilla. And then, you know, obviously, like I said, a Monsterverse Godzilla, whether it's the 2014 design or I feel like the 2019 through 2024, right before he hits the Evolve, that's probably the most likely. And then like a -1, maybe a Shin, I don't know. I feel like any interpretation of Godzilla of the past 10 years, excluding the anime versions, are a safe bet to include in this game. As for other kaiju, I feel like a solid majority of the Unleashed crew is probably a safe bet to include in this game. Only ones I see really not being included are Varen, because like, I was surprised he was in the game in the first place, to be honest with you. Varen is like such a niche character. And then Obsidious and Crystalak, unless the people developing the game are like hardcore fans of the old Pipeworks games, or it's Pipeworks themselves. As for, you know, Monsterverse kaiju, I can't believe I didn't say Kong yet. Obviously, I feel like Kong should be in this game. But any kaiju that's had more than 2 minutes of screen time, I feel like is a safe bet. I could totally see, like I said, Kong. I feel like Scar King and Shimo, the male and female Muto, and Skull Devil, I feel like those are like the safest bets. I don't foresee like the Warback getting thrown in this game. I do not see that happening at all. Maybe Doug, just for the meme. Maybe Doug. Oh, and Suko, obviously. If you got Doug, then you gotta have Suko. Now, multiplayer for this dream Godzilla game I'm envisioning, it's basically Kaiju Universe from Roblox, but officially made by Toho with, you know, better graphics and everything. Like, genuinely, there's not much else to say. Before Toho struck it down, I haven't played Kaiju Universe at all since then. I'm sure it's still fun. I don't know. I haven't played it. But, like, genuinely, like, it was one of the most fun, like, Godzilla game experiences I've had since these original Pipeworks games. Like it was a lot of fun just running around, like, as different kaiju with my friends who had no clue who they were playing as, and I had to lore dump on them who they were playing as. But it was genuinely just a lot of fun just running around, just beating the hell out of other kaiju with your friends. Like, that was a fun time for me. But also, I think there should be more than one type of multiplayer mode available. Like, give us the classic Unleashed multiplayer formula, just the couch co-op, just, you know, load up a map, beat the hell out of each other, like a 1v1 or 2v2 deathmatch, a mode where you can race against other players to see, you know, who creates the most destruction. Or, as someone who really enjoyed the Friday the 13th game and is sad that it is no longer with us, I could totally see a asymmetrical multiplayer setup work in a Godzilla game. Like, 1 or 2 people play the big kaiju, and the rest of the people in the lobby get to play as the military, and they have to try and stop the kaiju before, you know, too many casualties or they run out of reinforcements or whatever, kind of like, you know, Helldivers with the reinforcement system. And maybe, you know, if you play your cards right, you get access to either your own kaiju or, you know, a mech, like Mechagodzilla, Mogera, whoever. Obviously, that is me missing the Friday the 13th game, feeling like that would work in a Godzilla game. I really missed that game, man. That game is so much fun. But, like, I genuinely feel like this asymmetrical PvP setup in a Godzilla game would probably be better than a lot of asymmetrical PvP games. Obviously, that's just me having a Godzilla bias, but, like, I genuinely feel like it would work. You have the opportunity to have, like, 2 completely different gameplay styles between, you know, the kaiju, you just, you know, you kind of run around, just destroy stuff, versus the military, you know, you have reinforcements and everything, but you only have so many and you got to play your cards right. Now that we've talked about everything I'd like to include in this theoretical Godzilla game, we got to talk about what we want to avoid, considering, you know, the modern gaming experience is quite, it's something. It sure is something. You know, the gaming experiences came a long way further than anything I could have fathomed as a kid since, you know, these games came out. But that's both for better and for worse. So, you know, here's some things I really, 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 really do not want in this game. Above all, aggressive monetization of any form. Please, God, do not put this in a Godzilla game. That instant how to kill your game 101. I feel like I speak for literally everyone who's ever played a video game in their life. Nobody wants to be nickeled and dimed for, you know, playing a game. You want to enjoy every piece of content of the game without having to pay for it. Look, I'm fine with, like, a major DLC expansion that adds a substantial new amount of content to the game. Like, I haven't beat Elden Ring, but, like, how Shadow of the Erd Tree adds a ton of new stuff to the game. Like, I don't know, maybe they include the Hollow Earth in, like, an expansion pack or something like that. Or maybe, I don't know, a whole new planet, like Planet X or something. And, you know, you can access a bunch of new kaiju that aren't crucial to enjoying the game, but, you know, you can access them through this DLC pack. That's perfectly fine in my opinion. But please, God, please help me. If a new Godzilla game comes out and I have to pay $20 to get the GMK Godzilla or some stupid stuff like that, and please do not make over half of the roster paid editions that I have to pay like $1.99 per character. Like, I'm fine if like a couple of the characters are in some DLC packs or whatever, but I don't want half the roster to be locked behind a paywall. And please, God, do not do battle passes or item shops. I swear to God. Unless it's done in the Helldivers 2 approach, where you can earn everything by playing the game consistently, and you don't have to spend a dime past, you know, just a mission price of the game. Do not do an item shop, and do not do a battle pass. Just don't do it. Just please, God, don't do it. I hate FOMO. I don't want it in my video games. Don't put a battle pass in the Godzilla game. And as I said earlier when discussing gameplay, please avoid doing online only. Like I said, me personally, I far prefer single player over multiplayer. I know there are a lot of people that are vice versa, but the whole like gaming community has a lot of different people that enjoy a lot of different things, and I prefer my single player experiences, and if it comes to multiplayer, I prefer co-op over just competitive PvP. And above all, I just want to finish game at launch, man. I want the game to be, you know, complete, playable, and polished enough. It doesn't have to be perfect. There are going to be bugs, obviously, no matter what, but so many games nowadays launch half-baked, missing a huge chunk of content that was promised. Clearly just lacking, and they try to pull a No Man's Sky. Like, look, I love No Man's Sky. It's become one of my favorite games ever. Man, it was not that good at launch. It was not the game I was promised at launch. And, if it had not taken me 6 hours of playing it to realize that, I probably would have refunded it. It's come back as like a really big double-edged sword, because now devs across the industry just be like, oh, we're just going to release the game rushed and half-assed, and we'll promise to fix it later on down the line, and look how many of those games are still around. That doesn't mean you can't add more in the future. That doesn't mean you can't design it to where, like I said, you have some DLC content drop in the future, whatever. But for what is now $70, it used to be $60, but now it's $70. I want my game to feel like it's worth the money. I don't want a game that I can complete in like 5 hours. I don't want a game that I can experience all the content in less than a day. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up this whole video on my pitch on a potential future Godzilla game. Sorry if the structure of this video is sloppy. My ideas of this are kind of all over the place. I didn't really know how to structure it well, but I tried my best. This is just something I really wanted to talk about because, I don't really see that many people talking about Godzilla games much on YouTube anymore. Like I said in the last video, who knows, maybe Toho is secretly cooking like the best Godzilla game ever behind our backs, and we don't know it, and it's going to come out and it's going to be super polished and everything. It's going to have everything we ever wanted, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that's the case, but only time will tell. Maybe I'm just coping. As always, if you enjoyed the video, made it this far, make sure to leave a like and drop your thoughts in the comments down below what you thought of my pitch of this potential Godzilla game that probably will never come out, but it's nice to theorize, or maybe you have your own idea on how to make a Godzilla game that I completely have missed the mark, and you have the golden idea. Leave that in the comments below if you have that. If you want to see more kaiju content, obviously make sure to hit that subscribe button and follow me on Instagram. I've been covering pretty much strictly Godzilla at this point. I have covered Kong, but it's Monsterverse, so it's connected to Godzilla in a way. I'm gonna try and branch out soon. I got the Transformers movies that I'm wanting to cover before Transformers 1 comes out, but I want to talk about Pacific Rim. I want to talk about Cloverfield later on in the year. I want to talk about Kaiju number 8 once the show is finished airing. Not that it's going to come like immediately, but stay tuned for all that. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. It means the world when you watch my videos, especially all the way to the end. And as always, I will see you all in the next one. Peace.